The combined forces of veteran General Kobayakawa and the young Otomo prince Sugutsura cut an effortless path to the gates of Kyoto. It was exactly the sort of campaign that the other major lords of the realm would have planned for themselves were they only in a position to undertake it. The capital fell quickly, wiping the Ashikaga shogunate from the picture. There had to be a shogun though, and with so many men-at-arms in Kyoto, it was easy to convince the emperor to make Otomo Yoshiaki that man. While any other daimyo would have done the same, they had every right to condemn the move in the strongest possible terms. All of us are now rebels. That is what the emperor has decreed. Is he wrong? If so, what has fooled him? Are his words his own? Are his words even in Japanese? There is nothing left to discuss when it comes to the matter of the Otomo. They have taken the hands of the foreigners and been dragged into the filth. They would take all of us with them. Sacrilege, dishonor, and ruthless ambition. These are the great dangers that arose in the West, arose while we turned a blind eye. No longer! There is not a free man in this land who is not obliged to fight these invaders. We shall treat the Otomo as if they were the barbarians themselves, and that is not such a leap of imagination. We shall rally the clans together to fight as one against an evil that menaces us all in common. The evil inside our hearts, made real, made human, made mortal. We shall cleanse the world of the Otomo, and welcome in the spirits to join us in a new age of clarity, where the far places of the world are not unknown, but known to be realms of darkness. And when victory is ours, all must look up to the Takeda and say that it was we who brought the world back from the brink of chaos. Together, with all at my side, we will survive this ordeal and rebuild Japan. This is the will of a true shogun. Hello there and welcome back to Barbarian Masters, where right now I'm looking around Kyoto trying to assess the damage after that round of war declarations. Fortunately, not everyone around us here has declared war, so we're not going to be completely swamped on the first turn by the looks of things. I've recruited lots of cav who are going to wait outside in this reinforcement army, which is mostly cavalry. The plan there, of course, is just to keep things out of the city so that garrison units will spawn if it gets attacked, and cav are handy to have come in as reinforcements from outside the castle anyway. This purple clan hasn't declared war on us yet. That's pretty handy, means we don't have to defend southern Tamba this turn, although I do already have an army there just in case. And we've also now got a conflict going with the Sakai, who I was going to invade anyway. So up here with Sugutsura, things are just going to continue on as they were before, only now it's actually a bit more legitimate, because we don't have to just randomly declare war on them. We want to take Wakasa because it's a nice choke point, it will bring our front line up to a neater position. Tried to find an ambush position somewhere along the road so I could stop a counterattack from the Sakai should it come, but I didn't, so we'll just go and stand out in the open. It's going to be our 1 3/4 armies versus their 2, and we'll just see what happens. Public order just back in Tango is a tiny bit of an issue, so I can't bring everything up to reinforce right now. Considered going for some geisha attacks, but at the moment we don't really need to make any. I'm going to wait until we have some more focused and important targets to look for there. At Harima here we've got Kurokawa leading 2 3/4 armies standing in this area waiting to defend against a possible attack from the Miyoshi. Considered going on the offensive, but I am going to wait back near the castle and try and get the Miyoshi to waste some of their strength on a very difficult attack for them, and then we'll counterattack if we can after that. Yoshishige is just going to be in reserve, waiting near a fleet so he can sail out at a moment's notice to go to any flashpoints that might arise from enemy naval invasions, and it's pretty much the same thing for Yoshiaki, where he'll be guarding Kyushu along with Terada up in the north there. So what we do need to sort out at the start of this realm divide period of the campaign is securing as many naval choke points as we can and destroying as many enemy fleets as we can to minimise the risk of naval invasion, but perhaps more importantly, the risk of having our trade fleets attacked, because we absolutely need the income from those trade fleets to survive now that we're going to lose all of our vassals and trade partners. So here's our first major naval engagement. We're bringing to this fight a Nanban trade ship, and you can see it's already starting to have an effect on the enemy forces as they slowly tip into the sea. These things aren't as effective as the black ship, which we've been using before. They have about 5 guns on each broadside, which isn't all that much, and they're not even that accurate either, so you're not actually guaranteed to hit anything when you fire at the enemy like this. But they do have supreme range, and they're very good defensively as ships as well, because they're hard to board and hard to kill the crew of thanks to their weird shape. So overall, going to be a fantastic centerpiece for our fleet formation. The enemy are just going right for it, so I'm taking advantage of that by just making a little causeway for the enemy to come down, where they'll be shot by arrows and matchlocks the whole way. And of course the cannons on the ship can keep firing, and the closer the enemy gets, the more likely we are to actually get some deadly shots. We need lucky hits that pierce the enemy's hull ideally. Meanwhile they're firing back, and they just won't be doing anything. As I said, there's lots of cover on these ships, so arrows tend not to kill the crew when they come in. So a tiny bit later, things are going pretty well. Enemy ships just wrecked by cannon fire, and their crews are getting destroyed as well, because they're so distracted trying to attack my Nanban trade ship that they're just ignoring the fact I have regular medium bune, which even without the Nanban ship probably would be able to win this battle on their own. So essentially we're wiping the enemy out. Their first fleet went down really quickly, and then there was the second fleet to fight. I think it's the Sakai who killed first, now it's the Ando, and the Ando ships had fire arrows, so that can be a problem. We've seen this before. The Nanban ships can be set on fire, and that's going to be very deadly considering how much gunpowder they're carrying. So I have to set the crew to try and put the fire out, which stops them firing. Or at least it stops them firing at will, to be more specific, as I'll clarify in a second. Now the enemy just sailed around the Nanban ship, dodging the rest of my fleet pretty handily and hitting me with more and more fire arrows, so I couldn't put that fire out. But I can still actually fire the cannons using the manual fire thing, where you go in and target it yourself. So that's pretty handy. It makes the ship just act like a stationary cannon battery, so as long as the enemy sail into the arc of fire and sail in front of my guns, we can just fire them and still do a bit of damage while we get those repairs going, as long as I micro it enough. But really, we didn't need them because we had so many regular ships that once the enemy sailed around our Nanban ships and back into my fleet, we just wiped them out with arrows at point blank range, and the battle was very quickly over. Still got a few extra cheeky shots with the Nanban ship as it was, and it didn't explode, so that's the real victory here. Although we never did put that fire out, it's still going, as you can see. So that's 2 fleets down, many more still to come. If you had not worked it out, all these visitors to the court I have here are messengers from disloyal vassals of mine. Together they carried the pile of missives you see here. Each reads the same. Their lords have declared that they will not obey the will of the Shogun. Most illegal, to say nothing of the effect it has on their honor. And these men dared deliver such cursed documents, knowing surely what they would mean for their lords and their clans. I detain them not for my own pleasure, but for the good of the land. Japan needs not men with such a lack of tact as these. There are those elsewhere who do, though, so perhaps they shall make their redemption in gold. I'll need just one for myself. You, the man from Takeda. I want you to pick up those messages, all of them, and follow us out to the courtyard. Go now. And you, boy, fetch me a barrel of black powder, biggest you can find. In the Sakai turn, they come to attack us with just one of their 2 armies, so that's a curious decision. Now it's going to be our almost 2 armies against their 1, and we'll have the defender's advantage. The Ballastbow wasn't all that far in our favour. I thought we'd have more of an advantage considering our numbers, and the fact that our troops are pretty good in comparison to theirs in general. But anyway, we're going to have to fight it by the looks of things. we get a pretty interesting position that I'm going to try and exploit. We've got these cliffs here that I can put the guns on top of where they can't be attacked. To get to them, the enemy has to go further down the hill and then up from another angle, so we can just defend that approach using the rest of our army, and hopefully our guns will be able to fire effectively for most of the battle using that formation. The big problem, our reinforcements are on the other side of a mountain now, so effectively can't help us at all. What I needed to do with those reinforcements is rush them forwards to get into a hidden position, because the enemy will break off their army into two groups to attack the reinforcements separately, and I wanted the enemy to send everything towards our prepared position, because I thought we had so much of an advantage over there. I want everything to come in at once and be destroyed, rather than have a more even engagement with our reinforcements going on elsewhere. Our mortars get some good early hits on the enemy, but as we've seen before, it doesn't do very much damage, so not much going to come of that. Our regular cannons will be able to deplete the enemy a bit more effectively though as the enemy advances, in particular hitting the enemy's Onobushi at the front there, a nice valuable target. The rest of the army is mostly Ashigaru, so not too much point firing the cannons at them. Once their forces are a bit closer, our gunners can come into play, although I think we actually didn't have ideal lines of sight here, because once the enemy are within a certain range, the steepness of the cliff will actually stop us from having proper line of sight on them, so maybe this wasn't the best position after all. Still though, the enemy are coming towards my samurai here in the forest, ready to be defeated by them in melee. But they are going to take advantage of me a little bit here, because I actually didn't make the formation perfectly. There was a passable way up to my guns that bypassed my melee line, although only slightly. So now they're attacking the Turcos. My spears can just rush forward to join the fight. And the Turcos are pretty good in melee themselves, whereas these light cavalry aren't really. So that attack failed, fortunately, and we can quickly reform and get the gunners back into action. Meanwhile, the rest of our line is going to start advancing forwards. There's plenty of good melees for us to take, so we'll just charge forwards with our Naginata Samurai into their Ashigaru and hopefully win. We even managed to charge forwards to hit their archers, their Onobushi, which is pretty nice, although that melee will be much harder. It stops them firing, and they're probably more deadly at range than in melee. We've got free troops on our right and our cavalry who can start outflanking the enemy, because the enemy formation is much deeper than ours. And of course our reinforcements can now start sprinting to see if they can have some impact on the battle. They'll need to arrive very soon. Even without them, I think the fight's going well enough that we can probably just win it with the forces already engaged. On the far right, I had some more Portuguese troops. This is their main melee unit that you can recruit, the Turco pikemen. Despite being called pikemen, they actually can't form a pike formation, so they're more like Yari samurai. Still, they're going to do the job here, fighting Ashigaru. They don't really need to do anything special. We'll just kill these guys. They rout pretty easily. And as I moved my cavalry behind the enemy's army here, many of them started getting kited backwards, even from the melees, disengaging to go and chase my cav and Sugatsura. So that's going to help us out quite a bit, take some weight off the front line. Their generals coming in to try and take part in the fight, but now my victorious troops are charging down the hill. That general's going to face a very difficult melee indeed. We're going to secure this line pretty quickly by the looks of things. Everything started routing at about this point anyway, and the battle was over before our reinforcements could even arrive, so we didn't need them in the end. A nice decisive victory, so the Sekai have just gifted us that one by making this unnecessary attack with only half of their forces at once. Some losses taken, a couple of units damaged in particular, but nothing too much to worry about. We're still in good condition to carry on for our campaign in Wakasa. But now the second Sakai army wants to come in and fight us, so we're facing exactly the same battle again, only easier. We'll just have to slog our way through this one.
Father, when I did not hear from you, I felt forced to write myself. I made you the ruler of Japan. I have conquered lands and defeated armies without halt. You were twice my age when you first won a battle. It is time for you to admit that you were wrong about something. About me. There is nothing else I ask for, but your recognition. All the hours I spent studying while Yoshishige was grooming his murderous whores, you never gave a word of thanks for my dedication. Now I give you imperial mandate to rule the entirety of Japan, and you say nothing. What crime have I committed to be so beyond men, father? Do not let your jealousy mire the future of this family. Or would you prove the naysayers right? Prove that your capriciousness knows no end? True, a shogun need not show respect to anyone, but they should, father. They still should. No, I'm not sending this.
We're not trying anything fancy this time, just a nice normal formation, and I'm having to form quite a big left echelon because the enemy are making a very obvious cavalry flanking maneuver, so I'm just setting up to receive it. For whatever reason, they leave 2 of the units behind and advance with just 1 of them to start with, these light cavalry, and they're actually not going for my flanks as I originally presumed. They're actually going to make a far worse move, and that is just running in front of the line, where our range units will now be able to attack them. In particular, a little bit of the old firebomb throwing. It's a bit loud, but I think you get the point. Those light horsemen didn't last very long. I've got 2 units of firebomb throwers sitting in the corner who came on as reinforcements, so that's clearing the enemy out of this sector pretty easily. Then the other units came in, and they actually are going to attack our flanks, or they almost did anyway. I'm going to charge at them once they stopped right in front of us weirdly there. So that'll be some nice favourable engagements for us, including an enemy officer in there to kill, so that's all well and good. Now the main fights are about to get started, the enemy forced to charge up a hill towards us, and as they come towards my extreme left, these guys will also face the wrath of the firebomb throwers, doing nice damage to those units and disrupting them, thus it's going to inflict a morale shock, I believe. Along the rest of the line, something more normal about to get started. Our Naginata samurai going to face the enemies, Ashigaru, a nice easy fight for the most part, and on our right we actually weren't really engaged very much, so I can even move around to start outflanking the enemy right away. Perfect, since they have so many low morale units, that will do very big damage. And speaking of big damage, I left the firebomb throwers on fire at will, so they're just throwing things forwards into the melee, probably killing some of our own troops there, hopefully more of the enemy, and plenty of enemies were scared off by it, giving us a nice gap to rush forwards with some samurai to go and start attacking enemy archers and flank attacking units if we can. All good stuff, and I'm even going to move the firebomb throwers forward to start attacking enemy archers, since they may be able to just tear them apart really quickly before the archers can react to their presence. Our samurai also get archers into melee. That's going to be a nice easy fight, and at this point you can see most of the enemy's army starting to run away. The unit of archers there cut in half by the firebomb attack. As our victory becomes complete, so much stuff just fleeing. They had tons of drafted troops that aren't going to wait around to fight for very long, and they're all just running away before our advance. We can't really catch them, but by ending the battle, the auto-resolve will catch them for us, so we'll still kill most of them as they go. A nice decisive victory. I think it felt even easier than the previous battle, although we actually lost more troops, I think. Probably because I had some of my Ashigaru troops from the reinforcement army fighting in the front line, and as we saw, they may have been blown up by our own troops, although our friendly fire wasn't that bad according to those stats there. Now the Azai moved 2 armies down the northern road towards the capital, so that's what I was trying to prevent happening by going to take Wakasa. Seems I wasn't in time. Perhaps we'll still be able to stop them though. And there's the Kitapitake joining in on the war. We got 2 or 3 extra clans in on the war via a straight declaration, and then a load more clans joined the war via the joining enemies feature, so someone invited them to join the war, probably the Takeda at this point, including all of our old vassals, so that's nice. We did get a new member of the family coming in, so if we last long enough to get that far, we'll have an extra general at some point. We're losing money, we've lost all our trade partners, and with our vassals gone, we're not getting their vassalship payments either, so now we need to be very careful with our funds, and preferably lose some troops somewhere, or gain a lot of territory so that we can rebalance things. We can get started with an attack on Wakasa, we can just finish this off. We can use both of our armies to make it nice and easy, which will also allow us to get out of winter attrition, so that's extra nice. Nice easy win there. This doesn't actually secure the path down to Kyoto. The road is technically in the province off to the east, so we do have to advance a bit further to completely secure the capital from this angle. But hopefully from this position I can still do some manoeuvring to stop enemies going down, and perhaps make ambushes in the nearby forests to make it a very difficult option for them. We shall see. The capital is going to be in a bit of trouble in general in this phase of the campaign, because we're now very much surrounded by enemies. Everyone's declaring war on us, so we're no longer slightly safe like we were in the last turn. The Miyoshi have moved one of their armies east to go towards the capital, and that allows us now to advance on the Miyoshi, which is kind of what I wanted here, because taking Setsu just there is a nice idea for setting up a strong border. Since it's just next to the river and a bridge, it's a very good choke point position to have. So I'm moving Kurokawa to lay siege to the castle. It is fully garrisoned with an army. I'm just checking here to see if it's a severe winter. It isn't, so I could potentially leave this a turn to see if the enemy will sally out to give us an easier fight, not having to make a castle assault there. I'm actually going to come back to that little situation later, because I can actually reinforce and get a pretty big army to go on an assault with. First, I want to go and clear up the naval situation a bit more. Here I've got my special fleet with tons of Nanban ships in it. Just going to start attacking ships, in particular the ones near our trade nodes. Now that we're losing money, it's going to be especially important to protect the area around the trade nodes, because we do still make money from them even if we actually can't trade with any other clans. So here's a little battle right here. Nice and easy. Just wanted to show you this unit. It's the Nanban Karak. It's essentially the black ship, but a bit worse, I think. It's the same unit model at least. And that's going to be superior to our Nanban trade ships, although I think I can only have one of them in the Master of Strategy mods limiting system. So anyway, I've got so many cannon ships here that it should be pretty easy to bring down all of these bow boyers, especially because they're all grouped together for some reason. It did take a while to actually start sinking them, and most of them are going to sail right up to us before the damage is really dire. Fortunately, they didn't appear to have fire arrows in these fleets, so we were pretty safe. There wasn't really anything they could do against us. I even sent some of my other ships out just to distract them and start shooting crews to see if we could get this over a bit faster. And here they are, just crashing right into our boats. They just came right up to us and then died right in front of the guns, which may actually be blocking the line of sight from that ship. So perhaps that was a very sneaky strategy from the enemy admiral, although I believe he died to enact it, so probably not the best thing. Now their second fleet, which just had one or two ships in it, joining the fight as well, and they're going to go down just as quickly. That's going to be an easy win for us, and we're probably going to have quite a lot more fights like this before the seas are totally secure, and that may just last for the whole campaign, unless we can go and start blockading any of the major ports further east, where most of these ships will be coming from. So now let's go clear up some more ships. All fleets have been set to sea on the orders of the Shogun. His future is surely now in my hands. Cut off from the rest of Japan, we are now completely reliant on the Koreans, Chinese, and Nanban. On land, anyway. At sea, our crews are the very essence of the Japanese people, unlike those of our rivals. I have been able to secure enough native oarsmen to power 100 ships or more. The price? While my name may be written on the gateway to my estate, it would require a great deal of rhetoric to say that I owned it. I can't answer the question of whether this was worthwhile. If we lose, I will have doomed to death those who were fated to at least some kind of life in lands unknown. If we win, I think our very home will become lands unknown. We must hope, gamble, that a future under the Otomo shogunate is not as dark as the rigours of our war insist. As for the Nanban, well, I dare say the only hope on that front is that they come to fear us as the people fear God, lest we remain an ever-open basket for their long reach to plunder. Finally, it seems like we've got all the fleets we're going to be getting this turn, taking down several large ones and clearing out the areas around our trade nodes pretty effectively. Got all these captured ships that I need to do something with. Our financial problems mean we can't necessarily just repair them and then use them. Might be better to get rid of them, and I think that's what I eventually did, although I started by using them to block the nearby choke points just to stop ships moving between the two seas there. Now, one other issue we have at the moment is that our two vassals on the islands to the north and northwest of Kyushu are now at war with us, so we do need to have some ships just blocking their ports so that they can't move their armies out to land against us. That might be enough to keep them contained for the rest of the campaign, I don't know, we'll just have to see. It is a bit of an expensive way to deal with them though. So now we're jumping back to this battle with Kurokawa. I need to attack the Miyoshi here. I'm not going to focus too much on this battle because I played this in the most safe and boring way possible to minimize casualties so that we can be ready for any potential battles that will be coming in the future against all the millions of armies nearby. Now the only remarkable thing about this fight is that the enemy have lots of long-range siege stuff, including these mangonels who we need to deal with before we advance, and the only thing we can really do is try and make them run out of ammunition firing at us. First I tried hiding just behind these trees so I'd be visible and the trees might block the shots. Didn't really work, so I switched over to the classic strategy of just riding about randomly with some cavalry and trying to dodge shots. Didn't do so entirely successfully, did take moderate casualties using this technique, but at least it saves the infantry the casualties, and that's what we need to actually make the castle assault. Now a bit later, once that was done, I had to do the same thing against a unit of hand mortars who I wasn't really familiar with facing. They're pretty deadly, these things, but they have one big weakness, and that is it takes a very long time for their shots to land once they're fired. That means if you're moving at all, they will shoot very far in front of you, anticipating your future movements, so just walking up and down in a very small area is enough to make the enemy completely miss, and they don't have much ammo, so we cleared them out. And after that it was a case of bringing up all the archers and seeing how much damage we can do as usual, just killing everything and staying out of line of sight of the enemy's towers and enemy archers, of which there weren't all that many. Going to prioritise killing enemy archers if we can to make our infantry assault easier, and just generally reducing enemy numbers. And it just depends how many arrows you have, how effective this can be. We had something like 10 units of archers, so we could do plenty of damage. We almost entirely wiped out their army, but eventually we did have to go inside, capture a few towers and prepare to fight them properly. What I found is that the enemy were going in and out of the central part of the castle because when they're in there they can't rout, but when they come outside they immediately rout because of how much of a disadvantage they're at. So they got stuck just running up and down the ramp for the most part. I thought here I was about to get cavalry charged, but again these units just sort of sneak outside, then go nope and go back inside. So that's all easy enough. Use some more arrows to kill even more enemies, and then finally we go inside to fight with the crews of the siege weapons and the last couple of units left alive. There was one unit with moderate strength, I think it was some bow samurai who we had to wait a while to kill, but we have so much stuff now. We'll do it eventually, of course. So that's going to bring this battle to an end. I think we actually captured the point rather than killing everyone, not that that particularly matters. So a nice, safe, decisive victory, leaving our forces still in perfect health to continue fighting, and the castle in perfect health. We don't have to repair it or anything like that, which is great, because we have no money. We captured some mangonels from them, although I think I ended up getting rid of them to save money as well. And here we can see the enemy do have the building that allows us to construct or train, I should say, the hand mortar unit. And after seeing it in that battle, I was curious about actually using it. I thought it would be perfect for a siege defense, but they're really expensive and cost quite a lot to upkeep. So I thought probably at this point we shouldn't use those guys. We'll just try our luck with our current units. Now moving on towards the next turn, the Sergo declare war on us. These are the guys who control most of Shikoku Island, so they could easily land in eastern Kyushu or along the southern coast of Honshu, and that's what Yoshishige and Yoshiaki are going to have to look out for now. We may even be able to counterattack and actually go to fight them on Shikoku instead. For now though, we've got the Azai coming to attack Sugatsura. They seem to cool off their attack on the capital and will now attack Wakasa. The castle is wrecked from Sugatsura's assault, so the gates are open, meaning the enemy can just rush inside and possibly negate some of our defenders' advantage. Fairly dangerous, and they have plenty of numbers with an advantage on the balance bar. We'll have to see what we can do with this fight at the start of the next episode. The Sengoku Jidai was now entering a new phase. The contest for hegemony was not something that any lord could hope to win. It was no longer all against all. The war switched focus from deciding who would succeed the Ashikaga to who would be able to stop the Otomo from cementing their position as claimants. Or so it was for the noble classes. For the people, it was a yet more important struggle. A war to prevent the spread of foreign beliefs they held to be toxic, and to maintain the rule of law that the Otomo were not so strict about upholding. With surrender seeming like a distant option in the minds of all, the war was set to get much more deadly before it found any conclusion. That is it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. We'll have plenty of battle action as the realm divide really kicks in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.